What's up, Steelers fans? Welcome back to Around the Burgh. I'm your host, Mitchell Wolf, here with my co-host, Shane Kubis. Tonight, we'll be breaking down the Steelers' heartbreaking loss to the Los Angeles Chargers after failing to complete their comeback, losing at the end 41-37. Before we get into it, I'll introduce Shane. Shane, how you doing tonight?
I'm feeling all right. I wish I felt worse, honestly, about a loss like this, but there's so much that I think hopefully we could take away from it that was a positive that makes me feel a little bit better, but we'll definitely dive more into it here in a minute.
Yeah, I feel significantly better than I did last week around this time,
Yeah,
honestly, even though the result was technically worse
exactly
in
right.
terms of the standings. But anyway, so yeah, we're going to dive right in, and we're going to start with the defense. Usually we kind of go through the game in more of a narrative format, or usually start with the offense. But
Right.
we're going to start with the defense because we feel that it's pretty cut and dry what was wrong with the defense, and it's just that there were too many important players missing. TJ Watt's not playing. Minkah Fitzpatrick's not playing. Joe Hayden's not playing. Not to mention Tyson Alualu and Stephon Tuitt have been out for most of the season. So at some point, you're just missing too many guys, and arguably they were missing maybe 4 of their 5 best defensive pieces in this game.
And I feel like even if we had just Minka or just Watt or something, that it might have been enough to change the outcome of this game. But because the pass rush was one, it just wasn't very good in general, and then so many just open rushing lanes for Herbert, which we'll talk more about that. I'm sure that's a big part of the game. And then Minka too, like the last touchdown probably doesn't happen if he's on the field, and it's. It's hard to say, yeah, we give us our defense, yeah, we win. It's yeah, obviously that's probably what happens, but it's still just it's hard to watch the defense play as bad as it did, even when you factor that in. But that is why that happened.
Yeah, I was talking to my mom earlier, and I was saying, there were so many guys that were out, and I was saying, there was this guy named Delonte Scott who I've never heard of, and I'm pretty into the draft, so even Daniel Archibald who got snaps, I knew that name.
Yeah,
I had never heard of Delonte Scott
me
in my
either.
life, so
Not
I was
once.
so that's a problem. But
yeah, that's not good.
yeah, I totally agree, and I think I'm hoping that this is instructive for some fans who maybe are kind of disappointed with how Minka's play has been this season, at least from a statistical standpoint. You can see that when he's not out there, there's a lot of problems that he covers up. So I thought aside from the last play, Trey Norwood had a pretty decent game.
Yeah,
Locking on the back end, a lot of the stuff was kind of in front of him, so there wasn't much he could do. But he's obviously not Minkah Fitzpatrick, and
no.
like you were saying, the pass rush, it seemed like they were double or triple teaming Cam Hayward on every play, and then Alex Highsmith. Once they started moving him around a bit, he became a little more productive. But
Yeah,
I think the other thing, even maybe before we get into more of the Steelers stuff, is that one, Rashawn Slater is very good. He
He's
pretty much
awesome.
locked down Alex Highsmith, and two, Justin Herbert's awesome.
That's the thing with Herbert is he just makes it look so easy at times. And quarterbacks or something, it doesn't necessarily make them good or bad as an overall player, but guys who play the way he plays just really are just fun to watch, right? It just seems like you're watching somebody playing a different game almost. Some of the throws he can fit in, some of the way that he gets the ball out is just different from most guys in the league.
Yeah, the play that I thought was really instructive of that was, I think it was 3rd and 13, and he hit Keenan Allen right down the middle, and Sutton had his arm out, it's fully extended, and the ball was just past his fingertips, and he hit Keenan Allen right in the chest for a 20-yard gain. And they broke it down in the broadcast. They're listen, they're in cover 2 man. Sutton's in trail technique because that's his responsibility in 2-man. He's got safety help over the top, and Herbert just threads this ball in perfectly. And there's sometimes, the other guys get paid money too, and sometimes they're just better than you. And for the most part, Justin Herbert was better than the Steelers defense on Sunday night.
Right, that play too, that is where if Sutton is playing anyone else, he probably breaks up the pass, right? Most quarterbacks, that's a pass breakup. With Herbert, it's not. It just he didn't have enough time. He had to play that more aggressively if he wanted to avoid that. But again, you can't really do that. It's not his technique on that play. So there's some throws he just makes that just beats you. Like you said, there's nothing. It doesn't really matter too much who's on the field or what you're doing. It's just based on that you don't play that route like that against anyone else. It's tough.
And I think this game was also instructive from a general standpoint about how all the defensive levels fit together, because without TJ Watt, again, Alex Highsmith and Cam Hayward played well, but there was really no pass rush to speak of for most of the game. And that allowed Herbert to just sit in the pocket, go through his reads, and make throws very comfortably. And on the chance that the Steelers did cover the routes very well, Herbert was just able to escape the pocket and scramble downfield multiple times for big chunks of gains. And I think, again, if one of those guys that wasn't playing was back, or even two of them, some of those plays don't happen. You get TJ Watt just getting in there quicker. He's a better pursuit player than some of the guys out there. And, there just aren't as many big plays with the elite players on the defense. And that's kind of obvious, but, there's a lot of injuries on this team, and you're at this point, you're playing practice squad level players with significant snaps. And that's just you're going to get beat. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's just kind of what it is. Let's kind of leave it at that.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's, I guess we'll talk. Let's talk about this now. We'll talk about the Cam Hayward penalty.
Yeah.
Which, so for those of you who didn't see it, he's chasing down Justin Herbert for like 30 plus yards, which was incredible in its own right. And he falls on top of Herbert, and he's trying to get up, and they're kind of entangled. And a Chargers receiver comes from behind and tries to kind of get in there to help Herbert up. Cam shoves him away. And then, if I'm remembering this correctly, Cam kind of goes back down towards the ground, and then he gets bumped from behind by two more Chargers offensive linemen, and he kind of punches both his fists down, and it's into Justin Herbert. Now, a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is he just got away with like punching Herbert in the groin, and this is the same penalty as taunting." It's like, well, and people were just complaining that this was a thing, and they were like, "Oh, like there's like they were just mad that it was not an ejection," which I don't really see how it could have been.
So the problem is, like, let's say that Cam did know he was there, right? And realize, and he did like hit him on purpose. It wasn't this like egregious, like he like took a shot at him or swing at him, right? Even if it was like semi-purposeful, or he realized he was there or just was frustrated, this wasn't like a blatant like turn around and just start swinging at a guy. It wasn't so, and again, we know that Hayward isn't that type of player. So he has no precedent for this. There's no reason for us to think that even if he's frustrated, like that's the extent of it. He's frustrated. He's not trying to hurt anybody. He's not trying to like actually like swing at Herbert full on. This is a play where he just ran him down 30 yards. He's tired. He's exhausted. He's pissed, I'm sure, too, just from what's happening. The fact that that's the worst of it that it got really with this game, as far as like chippiness and stuff like that, I'm fine with that. Like, I'm not going to be mad about that.
Yeah, like the explanation that I will accept is that for the most derogatory slam towards Cam Hayward is that he was frustrated. He went to just kind of slam his fist in the ground, and he didn't really realize where Herbert was, and he just happened to be in the way.
Right.
I'm trying to find. He gave a quote after the game, and I'm trying to find it because I believe I retweeted it after the game, but I'm having some trouble finding it now. But I'll keep looking. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a lot to get mad about there. Again, Hayward is pretty much known as a very classy player, and I'm pretty sure he did a here we go. So he said, "I caught my hand under. I couldn't get up. I know it looks terrible. There was nothing malicious behind it. I'm sorry if I did anything to offend anybody. I wish I'd said more to Justin after." So, he was penalized. Yeah, it was handled. It's not like it wasn't flagged. There was a penalty. The Stars got an extra 15 on an already huge scramble. So I don't think there's any more reason to get any more mad about this.
No, I don't think so. No.
Anyways, we'll move to the offense now because the defense was bad. They couldn't really do anything. But the offense, after some initial struggles, they kind of came alive in the second half, put together a pretty valiant comeback, mostly engineered by Ben Roethlisberger's arm. And, they had the ball with, less than 2 minutes left and a chance to, drive down and get the game-winning touchdown. And ultimately, the offensive line kind of fell apart again, and they couldn't move the ball.
Yeah, it was well over 80% of this game was some of the best offense we've seen, especially from the passing game. I mean, this is what Ben does. Like, he didn't do it when he first got banged up early this year, but when something's wrong with him, or when there's every reason in the world for him to be bad, he's like, "Nah, I'm going to just be good this week." Like,
yeah,
that's just what he does. Like,
that was kind of my argument about like why I picked the Steelers, because I was like, this is gonna, like, something stupid's gonna happen, and it just happened to be Ben being incredible.
Yeah, it's like he's like shook off being a COVID patient. It was like, I'm going to show up in my own plane and just not practice at all.
Never let Ben practice again, ever.
Do you think that maybe at this point, considering like he obviously knows the offense, and he also runs the offense half the time anyway, especially when we're getting into these situations where we're down. Just don't even let him practice. Just let him. He can sit out there. He can be in meetings. Like, he has to be ready.
Yeah,
to know
I don't know. I mean, so here are his stats from the two COVID games. So last year against the Bengals, when he was a close contact, And last night, 606 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Steelers offense scored 36 and 37 points in those games. So I don't know, maybe
Something
he
about
already
like
gets
it's
one day
just
off. So like I don't know, maybe just make it 2 days off now.
something like it's just comical. Like this, like as long as something isn't ideal for him, he's good. Like it
Right,
almost feels like something has to be wrong for him to be like, all right, I guess I got to go out there and do it, right?
right.
And like if that's the case, fine, we'll figure something out to make it wrong every week. I don't know,
Yeah,
but it's just I
yeah,
don't
and
know.
I
It's
mean,
insane.
we'll talk about the positives of Ben. Like you said, he was playing great. He had some really nice throws over the middle. They finally started attacking there with some shallower crossing routes. But he did have, a few throws that were just like, this is definitely old Ben. Like there was one early where I think he was kind of rolling out and tried to throw a corner out to, I want to say
Fryer
Fryermuth,
move,
and
yeah.
and
Derwin
Derwin
James should have
James
intercepted
basically
it.
should have intercepted it. Yeah,
Yeah,
he just couldn't get his foot in bounds. And then there was the underthrow to Claypool that if he had hit him just even kind of in stride, he probably would have scored. But
touchdown. Yeah,
he underthrew him by about 5 yards, caused Claypool basically have to stop and fall down a few yards short of the goal line. I think they ended up
no
only
points.
getting no points that. Oh yeah, that was right. No points that drive.
That was
Yes,
the shovel pass thing
yes,
at the end of yeah. And
right.
that's what about that play is it wouldn't have been that big of a deal if they just score, right? Like
Yeah,
even if they get 3, like it sucks that you didn't hit him stride and score, but like you got points. The fact they didn't get points,
yeah,
that's what really kind of makes that play that much worse. And like for the most part, again, he wasn't missing throws like we'd seen some early in the season. He was making good decisions for the most part once he stopped throwing at Derwin James all the time.
hmm
And it was just you could tell that he was on point. He was comfortable with everything. And if we can get more of this, it doesn't have to be this good every week. Obviously we haven't been expecting it to be this good at all. But if we can see more of this type of stuff, especially between the 20s, right? The red zone we'll talk about,
yeah,
which is a mess. But between the 20s play calling and the execution yesterday was what we need if we want to be more than just this like passive run game offense. If we want to be more than that, that's what we have to do.
yeah. I mean, like I said, he had a the beautiful fade ball to Deontay in the end zone, which was a
Yeah, it was
touchdown.
awesome.
The kind of back shoulder. I don't even know that
That
incredible.
throw, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Insane.
that was so
Just
stupid.
absolutely like on both parts. Like the throw was awesome. Deontay was even better. Like he was in it. We'll talk about him a plenty too. He was just in his bag yesterday. It was insane.
Yeah, yeah, great game from Ben aside from kind of some of those underthrows, but
Right.
executed the offense and a lot towards the end of the game. It was kind of him just, we say this all the time, but him playing his like backyard football where it's hurry up, it's shotgun, it's just throwing the ball, and they had some funky plays worked in there that he was able to kind of run with the hurry up offense. So that was good to see. And again, they can't really build the whole offense out of that because we saw how that eventually ends up. So that's just
Yeah,
not
it
an
needs to be
option.
used sparingly for sure as needed.
But yeah, it is interesting. But the other part of why they had to use him so much was that there was really no running game to speak of, which was surprising given the fact that the
Yeah,
Chargers were missing 3 of their best interior defensive linemen, I think, and Steelers just couldn't get anything going. I mean, they were also missing Kevin Dotson at left guard. They were playing J.C. Hassenauer for a bit, and then he got hurt, and they put in Joe Haig, but not a lot of push in the running game, which was pretty surprising given the Chargers' struggles there.
yeah, and I noticed early on, I was like, I realized that they're missing a lot of guys, and they're already the worst rush defense. But as they talked about this a little bit too, like it's kind of by design to a certain extent. A lot of
hmm
weeks, like they don't care that much if you're running the football as long as they're not giving up points and they're defending the pass well.
hmm
And in this case, it was more that I think our offensive line was just not beating the guys that they had, even though they really should have. And we had our own injuries, like you mentioned, especially with Haig having to come in and play. But I just think it wasn't as much of a positive as we thought it was, just because of the way the offensive line played.
Yeah, yeah. Just that was really frustrating that they still couldn't get it
Yeah,
going.
Green
Against an
especially too.
yeah, he's really going through it right
Just
now.
the course, like the strength aspect of things, like being able to hold his ground has just been. I mean, he's not the biggest dude on the planet. Obviously, we know that, and I know you talked about it on the last show. Like, I do wonder if maybe guard is where he ends up eventually, just because I just don't know. Like, it doesn't seem like he's comfortable at center as much as he
Yeah,
needs to be.
yeah. I don't know because I do think there are times where he does get like the timing gets it allows him to be taken advantage of,
Yeah,
because he has to like focus on snapping and it might not be as natural to him. So Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, I don't think that's something they're going to explore in
This year, at
season.
least. No, I don't
Yeah,
think
like
this
maybe in the
year.
offseason they're like, hey, because like Turner's a veteran, maybe he decides to retire, moves on or something. They're
Right.
like, hey, like we can let's try right guard. We'll bring in somebody else to play center, which that is frustrating, but yeah, I mean it's just a problem right now, and at least there weren't any snapping issues. At one point, he was really firing it back to Ben, and I was like, let's take some speed off that
Yeah,
ball
calm
there,
down. It's
buddy.
all right, bud. Yeah, it's like, don't get too excited.
Yeah, yeah. Let's think about what else. Kind of I mean, great game from Deontay, like we said. Good game from Clay. Really, all the
Crazy.
receivers played well, including the tight ends.
Yeah.
Eric Ebron had a touchdown catch, but I think he had another big catch, but really wasn't used that much.
Yeah.
Fryermuth was underutilized again, but
Yeah.
I have to imagine that might be because he was drawing Derwin, and
A lot of his routes, it seemed like. I
yeah, so
think
that's
they wanted to remove that safety blanket type of aspect for Ben, I think. And as much as it left Johnson open more than they probably wanted, I do
mhm.
understand why they did that. Just because they wanted to keep him from getting in a rhythm after not practicing all week, and it just kind of didn't work out for them really for the
Yeah.
most part. But I think Pat will be better in most weeks of this, obviously.
Right, right. All right. Well, then let's talk about Matt Canada and the red zone play calling because I feel like a good amount of Steelers fans are kind of they are pleasantly surprised with how the offense played and willing to give the defense kind of a pass because of all the injuries. But if Matt Canada had made some different decisions, I think the Steelers probably could have won this game because as you mentioned with that one possession where they were inside the 5 and went for it on 4th and didn't get it. Another week of questionable play calling from Matt Canada in the goal to go area.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that. I do see we have a couple questions here, real quick, from good buddy Brandon here of Ravens ATB, which we'll let him ask some questions. Definitely looking forward to the first matchup in about 2 weeks. Yeah, I mean, I want to say I'm looking forward to it, but I guess it depends on how healthy these teams are.
I'll say, I mean, the Steelers. I mean, I'll say this, the Steelers traditionally have been solid against Lamar Jackson.
Yeah,
So
traditionally.
yes, and I think that's assuming that they will be back to full strength on defense. So it definitely will be interesting. And the Ravens defense is kind of funny because like they're either like playing super well, getting tons of sacks, turnovers, all that jazz, or they're giving up explosive plays. So
They're a big
Steelers,
hit or miss this year for
yeah. So
sure.
and the Steelers aren't exactly the most explosive plays offense. So that I feel
Might
like the
work,
Ravens
yeah,
Ravens might have the advantage there. But
probably,
yeah.
yeah.
And then in terms of his second question about Steelers going after a center in the draft free agency, I feel like they're probably going to try to stick it out with Green at least another season, just because the Steelers are kind of stubborn with
Yeah,
stuff. I mean, they put Ben Roethlisberger and Mason Rudolph are still the quarterbacks, so that should tell you all you need to know.
that tells you a lot there. I mean, there's definitely, I think
Benny
this is a
Snell's still
pretty
on this
good.
roster.
Well, yeah, that's
Daniel
we don't want to
McCullers
talk
had a
about
roster spot for
how many
5
years.
seasons for
It felt
literally
like
no
it, yeah,
reason.
no
Yeah,
reason at all. He didn't do anything. He didn't
yeah,
play.
yeah.
But honestly, I think that we're much more likely to bring in a replacement at guard for Turner, like you said, if
Mhm.
he goes, or do something other than the center position, unless there's somebody that's just clearly like a huge upgrade and they can move Green to guard. But he's probably going to get at least 2 years at that, knowing that if it doesn't work out, okay, we can try to transition him to guard again.
Yeah, and in terms of a draft, I'm not sure of the center market and free agency this year off the top of my head. But in terms of the draft, I mean, so there's Tyler Linderbaum, he won't be available when the
No,
Steelers
no
pick.
chance.
And after that, there's kind of a big drop off. So I'm trying to think. What's his name?
I'm trying to
I
remember
think there's a
too.
guy from Minnesota who's John Michael
Yes,
Schmitz.
something
Yeah,
like that. I know
yeah,
he's getting a lot
because
of
that's a
buzz.
really good run blocking offensive line. So that would be an interesting addition. But anyways, back to the red zone play calling. Yeah. So again, the one where they went 4 plays, I think they threw the ball 4 times, and I'll say the there was a goal line fade that he threw it when he had Claypool on
Asante Samuel
Asante
Jr.
Samuel Jr. Yeah, which that's a good matchup from a size point, especially when throwing goal line fade. So, and we have discussed Claypool's issues with contested catching, but it seemed like he was really healthy this game. He's catching a lot of good balls. So I'm fine with Ben taking the matchup. I just think he had a really bad throw in that play.
Yeah, it just wasn't a good spot to. I mean, you can't be overthrowing Claypool on
Right.
the fade route. Like you got to give him a
Yeah.
shot.
But again, and then I think on another red zone possession, they tried to do the Claypool jet sweep, which lost yards.
Yeah.
I think, and then this was the funny one where I think they threw to Claypool, and I think it was 3rd or 4th, and he drew a pass interference.
Yeah.
And the next play, they
ran it
they
over
sent.
the
I
top of
mean,
it.
they didn't. It was great because they put Zach Banner in at tight
Yep.
end. They sent out Gentry and Fryermuth. They put in Derek Watt, and they just ran it in the like traditional I form jumbo goal line formation, and just told Najee to run over the top, and he did exactly that. And I think maybe that was Tomlin maybe get like out on the headset can and was like, "Hey, listen, stop screwing around." Just
Yeah, listen. Like at some point though, right? Like, and I saw a lot of tweets about this. I talked about it. You talked about it. It's so you drafted a running back that's 230 plus pounds in the first round. Okay, you have a quarterback who's old. You have receivers who are young. Don't mess around in the red zone. Okay, getting to the red zone for this team has not been the easiest thing on the planet most of this year because they're not that good on offense right now. You can't miss those opportunities. Not whenever you have a guy that you can hand the ball off to who anywhere from really once you get in that 10-yard range, he could always bust through and just get a touchdown on it.
Yep, exactly.
You don't have to be this cute with it. Like I know you have all these ideas for play calls in the red zone, probably Cannon, and you have this different stuff. Like if you need to go to that stuff because it doesn't work, fine. Run the ball with your running back first, with the guy that you took with the first round pick, and then go from there if it doesn't work out.
I will say this, we did talk about the Steelers were struggling to run the ball. The Chargers obviously were kind of playing to stop the run. So I'll say I'm fine with throwing it at least, one or two of the plays, but you got to run it at some point. And a lot of people were saying, if you're going to go for it on fourth down there, run on third down. So at least you're probably going to gain some yards or just get in instead of throwing it 4 times. The other one, I just lost it. Oh, the time where, it was like another kind of fourth down situation where they changed their mind or they did something weird. I'm trying to think of it. There was one point where I think they kicked it instead of going for it, or they didn't go for 2.
2, right?
And that was after Najee Harris had gotten hit to the head, and there was no flag on that. So
right, and they were within. That was when they got within the touchdown, and then they didn't go for 2 there. Yeah.
Yes, and I think if Najee was healthy at that point, I think they would have gone for it, but because it was Snell/Balaj, they did not feel comfortable, which is wise. I would agree with that.
Yeah, that's
decision.
fair. Yeah, I can't say anything about that.
Yeah. But the other fun thing was, they blocked the punt. It gets, bad out of bounds at the 3. And it was funny. There was just this collective groan. And you kind of mentioned it where it's like, oh God, they're going to have to score from the 3 yards out. This is terrible.
Oh, God. When I saw the punt, I'm like, get the ball. And then I'm like, this might mean nothing. That's got to punt mean nothing.
That's got to be like one of the most frustrating things as a football player. Like you're in the top 0.5% of athletes in the world, and you're just running around after this bouncing oblong shape that's just moving with its own mind. You're like, what am I doing? How did I get here?
Gosh, I think it makes football so much more fun though, because if there's one thing I'll say is that, like you said, these are some of the best athletes on the planet. Once that ball's on the ground, nobody knows what to do.
Yeah, it's
nobody. Yeah. It doesn't matter what level of football you're at. Nobody knows. Nobody can pick that thing up half the time. It's if you don't catch that thing in mid flight, you have no idea what's going on.
That's really the one thing that Madden got right. Because when there's a fumble in Madden and the ball just keeps getting kicked around, that is accurate. That's very
that could
true
be
life.
Oftentimes look pretty normal. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Gosh, I don't know. It's insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, just outside of again, we had these crazy plays to get back in and gave the offense life and gave them a chance to put scores on the board, and the defense finally did a couple things like the cam to cam play.
Yeah, that was sick.
Awesome play.
Yeah. And again, this defense did struggle, so a lot of these things were kind of stupidly lucky.
They're fluky stuff. Yeah,
Hayward gets a ball thrown right in his face, bounces 20 feet in the air, and then Cam Sutton gets his head taken off.
Yeah,
which wasn't called either.
And then Norton was just annoying. Yeah, this game. Idiot.
Man. Yeah, that was big dumb.
Imagine being bad and then also being making it worse by being an idiot on top of it.
Yeah. And then and punt blocks are so. I mean, it's just the second punt block of the Steelers season, and
true.
Yeah. I mean, and that was a really quality block, in terms of how they schemed it up.
I think Killebrew has gotten both, right? Hasn't he?
I think.
I think he's blocked both. Hasn't he?
He might have it. Well, he blocked this one, right?
Yeah, he blocked,
and he would have been the close to recover it.
Yeah,
he was definitely involved with the other one.
Yeah,
I can't remember if he was.
I don't remember if he blocked it or not, though.
Yeah, but that was interesting. So do we want to get into 3 stars now?
I
think
do
we've kind
want to
of
talk
covered
about.
everything. Okay,
There's
go
one
ahead.
player I think we need to talk about a little bit that we haven't talked
Oh, I
about,
think I
and
know where you're going with
that's
this.
old Devin Bush.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought this up because I think I put it out of my mind because I didn't really want to talk about it. But
Yeah,
you're right, we
me
have to
either.
talk
But
about it.
I feel like we have to, right? If we're going to talk about this.
Yeah, this was really the biggest, I would say, the biggest thing on Twitter for this game. I think,
Yeah.
Devin Bush was probably trending, probably for all the wrong. That's my favorite thing about the Twitter trending thing now is it's like fans sound off on whatever, and it's not like fans are calling for the head of so and so.
Yeah, it's just.
It's just like this very like blasé, neutral state, which I find funny because obviously the language on Twitter is so vitriolic.
Oh my god! Yeah, it's funny.
But yeah, I mean, he had another rough game, got torched in coverage a good amount of times. And I mean, to his credit, Austin Eckler is a fantastic option out of the backfield, and he's going to torch most linebackers. But, still struggled in run defense, got taken advantage of in coverage a lot. I did write this down because I did want to say this. There were only 12 combined coverage snaps for the outside linebackers.
And I'm fine with it.
I think there were 78 or 76 defensive snaps, so less than 1/6.
That's fine. I mean, it didn't. I
And
mean,
I don't
Herbert
think
was going to kill us
none of
anyway.
them took more than 5, I think.
Right. Like honestly, Herbert was going to kill us, so it's like I guess it
Mhm.
doesn't matter that much. But I'm glad at least they didn't make it that much worse.
Yeah.
But with Bush, like I can tell, like watching him in this game especially, everything is just a step slow.
Mhm.
Like his decision making as far as what he's going to do, trying to guard guys, his
Mhm.
attacking the football, everything is a hair slow. And I think that at this point, whether it's a combination of the ACL injury and him just not developing and not having guys in front of him that he's had so far in his career, he's a guy that clearly is probably only going to be a capable starting caliber player with the right players in front of him.
Yeah.
He's not going to make the plays on his own. He's not going to elevate that group. And it sucks to see for a guy that talented and that young. I don't know what the likelihood is that he's going to be able to figure it out at this point.
Right. So there's a few things that you mentioned there, and they're the reasons why I'm still not ready to completely give up on Devin Bush
Right.
yet. And the biggest one I think is the ACL. And
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is that a lot of people heal differently from them. They're not everybody's Adrian Peterson or Cooper Kupp or whatever.
Right.
And the other thing that I've heard is that, and this I think they might have mentioned this on the broadcast or a broadcast at some point, that it's even when you're recovered and you can play, it's usually the second season when you're kind of back to really feeling the closest to yourself before the injury. So obviously we're still in that 1 year window. And I think that injury combined with him playing behind, Cam Hayward, but also like usually like 2 backup to practice squad level players are really hurting him. And I think at this point, he's just lost a lot of confidence in himself. And I think that combined with the injury is what's causing that slowness or hesitancy that you mentioned. I think that because of those aspects being combined, he's hesitant to see things. He's second guessing himself, and he's just not playing like instinctually or free. He's locked up, so I still think, he obviously they have him for a few more years under contract. I think you got to see how he is next year when he's, back to full health. Ideally, when they get a more competent defensive line in front of him, and then he can play a little. I think that he has been absolutely a disappointment, especially this year. But I think that there are contextual aspects of it that one make it hard for him to succeed, and things that are just out of his control that he can't overcome.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. He's definitely going to get plenty more shots to make it work and try to figure it out. I do think that for him, it's going to be really important that, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, is Schobert under contract for next year too?
I believe he is.
At
I
least
think that's
next year?
correct. Yes.
Because if he's back and he can play with him still and be that
Mhm.
second guy, I
Yeah.
think that helps them, feel more confident letting him go out there and play through it and trying to figure it out. Because outside of this game and a couple moments here or there, like the defense has still been good enough with him in there. It's not like they're bad or anything. He wasn't
Yeah.
tanking the defense. So they can work around him for the time being and try to let him play through it. I do just hope that he does start to figure it out, not so much just from a physical standpoint, but also, like you said, getting his confidence up, because he is playing really tentative and not nearly fast enough for someone in his athleticism.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I can promise you Robert Spillane is not a better option.
No, he's not. No,
I can
absolutely. That's the
promise
problem.
you that.
That's if he was, I mean, he'd be on the field even more than they already put him on the field. Like it's clear that they understand that like he's still the best player to put out there right now overall.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope that he does, like you said, start to figure it out a little bit more, especially as a coverage player, because the run defense, it's a lot of it is the defensive line just not being in front of him. And
I think the interesting thing about that is, the last 2 seasons, he played next to Vince Williams, and obviously Vince Williams is a limited player, but Vince was playing that buck linebacker role that is meant to be like the primary run stuffer.
Yeah.
And Vince, he throws his head in there, he dives into the trench, and kind of mucks things up, and then Devin comes and kind of would come and clean it up.
Right.
He kind of Vince's play like forces the running back to make a decision that ostensibly puts him moving towards Bush. I think with Bush now playing that Williams role with his injury and with his playing behind a subpar defensive line, he's not able to kind of muck that up because, he's not getting as much help. And again, he's still recovering from the injury. So I think there's a lot of moving parts with this. I definitely agree that he's struggling, but I'm just not fully ready to give up on it yet because I think there is still a good player in there who can be a capable starter, as you said.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get into actually, before we do that, we do have a very, very important question in the chat.
Sure.
Opinion on pineapple on pizza.
You want to kick this off?
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Dog shit. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's honestly like my problem is I think I might like something like that, except I'm not the biggest pineapple fan. Period.
See,
so,
that's my fiance's the same way.
problem.
Like she just doesn't like pineapple, like because of the texture. So like it's just kind of a non-starter.
Lost
But yeah, I mean, I think like I don't know if Hawaiian also includes the ham.
Yeah,
on the pizza. It does. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then yeah, like I will never choose it because I'm a very like traditional. I like plain cheese pizza guy. But like I'm not like that's gross. Like I think it's fine.
Yeah, I think I'd be okay with that idea of it, except that I just don't like pineapple at all. So that's kind of
all right. Well, I'm glad we got.
Yeah, we're glad we got our official opinions out.
That was a controversy that we really needed to address in the podcast.
Right,
something that we discussed a lot. Anyways, let's move into our 3 stars of the game. I'll kick it off with my 3rd star, and it's Alex Highsmith. We talked about him earlier, but 64 snaps, 6 tackles, 3 solo tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1.5 sacks, and 3 QB hits. And, Highsmith, I think he kind of knew he had to be the guy. And you could tell he was playing with his hair on fire the whole game. He was really just going balls to the wall for the whole game. Once they started moving him around a bit to try to get him away from Rashawn Slater, he started having some more effect on the quarterback. And, some of the times where he would get pressure, it would cause Herbert to step up and then scramble. And that's just that sucks. But, really great effort from him all around. Had some really big plays as a pass rusher and a run defender. And I was just overall very impressed with him as a player in this game.
Yeah, this was definitely one of those moments where like his individual play kind of gets undervalued because of the rest of the defense because they didn't do anything really outside of a couple of big plays. And the pass rush lane discipline was non-existent most of the game, and that's why Herbert kept having these huge wide open lanes to get through. And it's tough for him because he did play very well, but like he's probably going to feel like it didn't mean much in the end of the day because of it. But for sure, he definitely deserves a lot of credit for this game. And for my 3rd star, just because I do have 2 guys ahead of him in this game, but I still think he had by far is obviously his best game of the year. I'm actually going to put Ben here, a 3rd star. He had a really like for his standards, this is a 1st star game for Ben. But as an overall performance, this was again really really good. Still missed some things. Still had some stuff I didn't love to see. So I'm just going to give him the credit he deserves for at least playing his best game.
Right. So Ben was my 2nd star. So I'll kind of just
totally fair. Yeah.
So 28 completions, 44 attempts for 63.6 completion percentage, 273 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 103.7 passer rating, but only a 59.5 QBR. So I mean, this was definitely his best game as a passer, like we said earlier. Just the offensive line kind of just fell apart in the last drive, and they couldn't really get anything going. Yeah. So with that, who is your 2nd star?
As much as he kind of was on an island by himself and didn't have as much impact as he normally would, I got to go Cam here. I mean, he just between the play to the Cam to Cam connection was an awesome play. Like just running down Herbert even after giving up a 30-yard gain. Like you could tell that he's still, even in a game where the defense wasn't around him and he couldn't do it by himself, he still did everything he possibly could do to help us stay in the game and win the game. And I got to give him a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, he didn't make mine just because I feel bad about it, but I did
Yeah,
want to give Highsmith the credit because
right.
he was kind of asked to step
Absolutely.
up
Yeah.
and played better. This is kind of it's kind of funny to say, but like this is kind of the standard for Cam. We're like, okay, yeah,
Right.
he did
That's
what
the problem, right?
he did what he always did. Yeah, so I mean, he was playing. He was like obviously the chase down of Herbert was incredible. Running 30 some yards for a 300-pound guy,
Crazy.
getting the deflection off the face mask, and they showed it earlier in the game. Like he was getting double teamed on every run play,
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
just couldn't do much. So and yeah, so that's just it is what it is. So I'll give my first star, and it's Deontay Johnson. 11 targets, 7 catches, 101 yards, 14.4 yards per catch, 1 touchdown, no drops, 2 for 2 uncontested catches, and you know he was getting open a variety of ways against pretty much anybody who was covering him. Had some, like I said, good contested catches, good big run after the catch plays. Clutch catch in the end zone for a touchdown. Just a overall fantastic game from Deontay, and really good to see him kind of get over the demons of last year. I think they said he only has one true drop this season, and that's awesome for him.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I got to go with Deontay as well. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you can tell that he's turned a corner this year. He's not just the high volume, going to get 100 million
Mm-hmm.
targets and get almost 1,000 yards. Like he is a true number one receiver for this team right now. And between the contested catch ability for his size and the route running, and I mean his burst after the catch too. That run where he picked up 40 yards on the
Mm-hmm.
catch and run, like he just makes people look slow sometimes out in the field.
Yeah, I mean
And
they
I
hit
love that.
that. They hit
Yeah,
that slant that he just takes for like 30 plus like once a game.
exactly.
It's
It's like they forget about him just long enough for him to be like, okay, I can run 40 yards now because there's no one that's going to catch me from behind.
yeah.
And it's just awesome to watch. I'm really glad to have him on the team.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that'll I think bring us to a close for this episode. A disappointing loss, but with all
Yeah,
things considered on the defense, it kind of made sense. And like I said, I had this penciled as a loss from pretty much all the season, including the preseason. So
yeah,
I'm not too shocked at the outcome. It's obviously disappointing, and the Steelers kind of needed this with the rest of the AFC North getting a win this week, but they'll get a chance to pick up a division win next week when they play on the road at Cincinnati, which will be a very tough game, but we'll see how it goes. We'll be back later on this week to preview that match. But in the meantime, Shane, let the people know where they can find you.
find me at Shane Cubis on Twitter, like always. And now, more so than ever, if you guys got a chance to catch it over the weekend yesterday, I'm going to be tweeting during games on the Steelers ATB Twitter account. Definitely check that out. I will start with trying to be smart and analytical, and then I will start to just tweet stupid stuff after a while, as you see.
Yes, we
So,
will just devolve into idiocy
yeah,
as we are wont to do.
exactly.
And for more of said idiocy, you can follow me at Mitchell T. Wolf, WOLFE on Twitter. Yeah, follow us there for all of our Steelers takes and opinions on Steelers news. Thanks for tuning in to us tonight, and we hope to have you back next time.